Good morning, everybody. It's Rabbi Kolakowski, the Koblenzer Roof, and it's my voice is finally coming back a little bit. I still can't do the Curly Howard imitation. When I got my Three Stooges, fan club magazine yesterday in the mail. It comes quarterly. I wanted to do my Curly imitation. I just can't do it. I'm not even gonna try. Not pertinent. Not right now. Maybe by tomorrow I'll be able to do it. Or maybe by this weekend at Monster Bash. Anyway, this is really a message for. Obviously he's not going to hear it, although he should. But it made me sick to my stomach listening on the radio on the Hugh Hewitt show. He should be well. Hugh Hewitt's great. He's a little moderate, but it's okay. We need some moderate voices. That's good. Although, like I said yesterday, we saw it happen 2 days ago. I think it was already. I talked about this in my congressional district that we had a moderate Republican against an extreme left-wing Democrat, and somehow the Democrat won. But that's part of why there's these issues with gerrymandering, things like that, and how we need to make sure that the rural voice is heard. And it's shocking what they're doing to us and silencing our voices by putting cities into our congressional districts. Meaning, but anyway, that's neither here nor there. But there's really a message to Senator Bernie Sanders. It absolutely made me sick to my stomach hearing the recording from him, his own voice. I wouldn't believe it if I didn't hear it. He said that he called our great President Donald J. Trump, a pathological liar, a racist, a religious bigot, and a homophobe. Maybe some other things. I don't remember. Now, all of these are unequivocally false. And we have a saying in the Jewish tradition, Kol hapoisel b'mumei posel. Whoever puts someone else down, they do it with their own, they're projecting their own problems on somebody else. We take that from the story of Korach. In English, I guess it's Korah, who rebelled against Moses, and all the things that he said, basically calling Moses, who the Bible testifies as being the most humble man who ever lived, and Korah calls him arrogant. Really, Moses was, of course, the most humble man who ever lived. God himself testifies to that, and Korah was the arrogant one. And so too here. Like President Trump said, he's the least. Let's go step by step. The most obvious one. To call President Trump a pathological liar is the craziest thing I could imagine. He is the first president, one of the first politicians who has kept all his promises. He made promises and he kept them. That's the exact opposite of a pathological liar. That's like a pathological truth teller. Because and in politics it is pathological. I'm not a fan of Meir Kahana's politics or his views on Zionism. And I know some people feel that he was a thug, this and that. I think he was Gevein of Yid, but he was a Tiddik Shenishmo. He grew up, his father, Reb Cheskel, even though his father came from a Choshev family, Shinaveh Chassidim. His father is also a Shtikl Tzioni. His father, maybe even worse, his father brought Jabotinsky into his house, and Jabotinsky was a thug. So, Jabotinsky was not a fan of the Erechid. So, but Azoy's Gevain demos, like there were these types of people, and so like, you have to forgive him a little bit. But anyway, they say that Meir Kahane, when he was in the Knesset, they were. I mean, I myself, I'm thinking now with the Koch brothers, they want people to run for Congress, to run against these people like AOC. We really need someone to run against this guy that we have. What's his name with the Italian name? This black guy with the Italian name. I'm Italian, so I can say that. Delgado. Anthony Delgado. We need someone good to run against this guy. We got to get rid of him. He is so far to the left. It's scary. So anyway, and I'm thinking, if AOC can be in Congress, if Ilhan Omar could be in Congress, I mean, at least Rashida Tlaib has something to her, I mean, I disagree with her, and I think she's foul-mouthed, and she at least has, something behind her. But the AOC, what does she have? What is this? But I'm not going to be a carpetbagger the way, really, this Delgado's a carpetbagger. He's from the city. But, my family, we've lived up here for 25 years more, coming up 26 years, December. So it's, that's most of my life. I'm 35 years old. All right, maybe I didn't live here the whole time, or whatever it is, but this is where I live. I mean, not where I am now, I'm in Pennsylvania now, but I live in New York. In New York 19, but anyway, why am I this 7 minutes already? Now Bernie Sanders really not going to listen to this because I'm rambling too much. But anyway, Meir Kahane, they said, but like I was saying, I would run for Congress, but I think I have too many skeletons in my closet, So, and I don't want to embarrass my family like that and everything. I mean, my wife knows, but does the whole world need to know? Anyway, what was I saying? So Meir Kahane, they say that they did all kinds of, the Israeli media did all kinds of investigations into him to find some kind of corruption so they could get rid of him because they hated him so much, right? So then they couldn't find anything on him, which even it's strange because there are stories about him in America, but it's neither here nor there. And I'm not. Again, I'm no one to judge. But but the story goes that I heard, this is what they used to say, was that they couldn't find anything on him. So then they said that's a siman, there's something wrong with him. That's a sign there's something wrong with him, because every politician in Israel is corrupt. So to have a non-corrupt politician, it's it means there's something wrong with him, and that's what I mean. The president, not only he's not a pathological liar, he's a pathological truth teller. Meaning it's bizarre how honest he is, and that's great. That's what we need. That's what we mean to drain the swamp. The swamp is filled with liars. I mean, Bernie Sanders, I used to say, at least he's honest. Because really, all of the Democrats, they're all commies like him. But at least he's honest about being a commie, right? And so because he's honest, he can't play the games in Washington to get anything done. So I felt it would be like no harm, no foul if he would chas v'sholom become a president, as opposed to a politician like Hillary Clinton. But the fact is, Bernie's been a politician his whole life. He is a liar. He is a pathological liar. He's just so good at it that he can cover it up by being honest sometimes. And that's the story with Bernie Sanders. The next thing, racist. Now this is a man who was always hanging out with Al Sharpton. There are pictures of him. I'm talking Donald J. Trump, our president, our great president. There are pictures of him hanging out with Jesse Jackson, with Al Sharpton. He was very good friends with Don King. It was all kind, he helped what's her name get that lady out of jail. The what's her name? I don't know the rap musicians. Whatever, the singer, I don't remember her name, and she helped him get the lady out of jail. She brought it to attention that this woman got a life sentence for drugs, which is ridiculous, and she really turned her life around, and she facilitated chaplaincy work in the prison and everything, and she's out of jail now. This African American lady, like how do you call the president racist? They say he's a religious bigot. What do you mean he's a religious bigot? His own children are Jewish. His grandchildren are Jewish. His daughter's Jewish. His son-in-law's Jewish. His daughter-in-laws are Jewish. All his grandchildren are Jewish. You call him a religious bigot? And then the biggest lie is the homophobe. Because the fact of the matter is, and this was something that, to a certain extent, I felt like voting for President Trump, I had to hold my nose. Because he is the absolutely most pro-gay president we have ever had entering into the White House. Meaning President Obama had to make a whole big show about how he changed his mind about marriage, the redefinition of marriage. That, for all the years, he said officially he believed that marriage is between one man and one woman, and then he had to make this big show about how his kids convinced him, and look, he's cool with the kids, Obama, he's cool with the kids, he's listening to his kids, and they convinced him. Now we know that Obama supported gay marriage all the time. He was just lying that he didn't, because he felt that at the time it wasn't politically expedient to say that, and that he had to make this whole thing. I think he was already in his second term when it wouldn't matter, it wouldn't cost him any votes. I don't remember yes or no, but he had to go on TV and make this big speech about how he changed his mind, whereas President Trump has always been pro-gay, always supported gay marriage. Now, to me, I'm on the political spectrum more libertarian, and I think it should be up to the states to decide this issue of the redefinition of marriage, and I really think it should have gone to every state as a referendum, and not the way New York did it, shoving it through the legislature, and certainly not the way that the Supreme Court did it, by declaring something a right that's not a right. But there's nothing we can do about that now, for now. But with that being said, the real important issues right now are protecting religious freedom, meaning, let them do what they want. And the thing is they can find, a liberal minister, they can find a reform rabbi, they can find whoever they want to make their ceremonies, or just go to a judge or whatever, and laws up. But don't force people who believe that it's religiously wrong to do something that violates their religion, just like you're not going to force a Muslim to eat pork, or a religious Jew to eat pork. That's a weird thing. You don't have to say religious Muslim. Like, Muslims just don't eat pork, but or else they don't call themselves Muslims. Like, what's this with people? Like, why does Bernie? I mean, I'm happy that Bernie Sanders doesn't play up the Jew card so much, but he's really a religious bigot, and he's really the real type of racist, and I wouldn't say homophobe, but the whole ideology of socialism and of the Democrat Party is collectivism, meaning the Republicans care about the individual, and they don't care if you're black or white. It's not about race in the Republican Party. It's about individual liberties and freedoms. It's about people, not groups. And the Democrats, everything is about what group do you belong to? Identity politics. Can we fit you into some kind of voting block so we can count on your vote? That's what the Democrats are all about. The Democrats don't care about blacks or gays or any of these groups. I mean, they really invented this idea of the gay community, meaning as opposed to homosexuality being simply an act, which is what I believe. That's what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't say that there's any such thing as sexual orientation. People are people. From my reading of the Bible and the commentaries that I'm familiar with, it's assumed that human beings are essentially like pansexual in their nature, and that religion and society are there to lift us up out of that and to try to guide us into what's the right path, away from our base animal urges and into something that works in society. And for the Democrats, it's not about, they don't really care that somebody has a right to what kind of private sexual acts they have. That's not their issue. Their issue is, can they form a group that can now be used as a voting bloc? That's what they care about. They don't care about the individual human being who identifies as a homosexual. They care about the group that they can count on their votes. That's all it's about. But the thing is if you look at what President Trump's actual policies are, he has a very strong policy, which I agree with, to decriminalize homosexuality throughout the world and to put pressure on countries that criminalize homosexual activity to legalize, to at least decriminalize it. And I think there's a difference between decriminalization and legalization. I can see the difference there. But certainly it's not something that, people should be executed for in our society today. Now, someone's going to say to me, well, doesn't your Bible say that they should? And yes, it does. But the other thing is that the Bible says that by two witnesses is something established. So how do you have, and we have very strict rules about religiously who is valid as a witness. And most people who are going to be watching, if something like that is happening privately, there's no witnesses. And if something like that is happening publicly, the people who are watching it are not valid to be witnesses. And so if someone engages in that, and between them and God, they want to repent, they want to fast, they want to give charity. In our tradition, we have, various texts that discuss what kind of, restitution a person should make to God if someone commits this sin, which I think recognizes that it's something that happens. I mean, you read the Ben Ish Chai has a pretty long liturgy, how to atone for if someone committed Mishkav Zachar. And and he goes through it. It's several pages long, and he prescribes, methods of fasting and giving charity and so forth, and meditation and prayer and study and so forth. It's a pretty long thing there that you read and you perform this ceremony, so you can move on, and feel like you're clean, and you start over. And other rabbis have different things, but why is it there? Because unfortunately, it's part of human nature, like we discussed. We do have the animal nature, and people fall into these things. But the thing is that doesn't. The point in that is it doesn't identify you. It doesn't transform you into a different type of person that now, therefore, you need to be this card-carrying member of this organization because you engaged in this act. And it doesn't matter if it's a homosexual sin, it's a heterosexual sin, if it's bestiality, if it's adultery, or whatever it is, and all of many of these are capital sins. Not all of them are, but we even in ancient times when we had the Sanhedrin, we did not impose the death penalty, very rarely on anything like this, because it was impossible. It's not to say perhaps these things like this didn't happen, and so then we ask about the 7 laws of Noah, because these other countries are operating under the 7 Noahide laws. When we say that according to halacha, under the laws of dinim, they're doing the right thing, and the answer that I have is that yes, they're justified according to Jewish law. If this is what they want to do, meaning it seems from Maimonides that it's almost obligatory if you have the and I think for a Gentile court only one witness is required, and they don't have the same requirements of the strictness of witnesses. But the things is, we know that Gentiles are allowed to accept Jewish law, so if they want to be strict and say they insist on 2 witnesses, they insist on a certain level of piety for the witnesses and so forth, according to laws of dinim, that could be a possibility. Although it would seem from Rashi and certain midrashim perhaps not. That's the whole story with Shechem and this. But there are many Rishonim who have stated that when we say that the death penalty is allowed to punish the violations of the 7 laws of Noah, it's not a requirement the way Maimonides teaches it, and certain other midrashic sources, but it's not really halachic sources, and it's very hard to really codify anything halachic when it comes to 7 laws of Noah, because there's so little material on it. And it's a question, when we look at midrashic sources, if there's even really such a thing today as the 7 laws of Noah. And but if we work in that rubric, in that framework, what we could say is that it's up to and including the death penalty would be permitted, but it's not necessarily required, and that other forms of punishment are allowed to be administered as far as these things are concerned, the violation of 7 laws of Noah, meaning you don't have to execute someone for stealing a penny, the way that the Rambam seems to understand that under the 7 laws of Noah, that a Gentile court should execute someone for stealing even a penny, whereas they couldn't impose anything up to it. Other Rishonim say it's anything up to and including that. So, and I would say the same thing here as well. You can have a society that teaches that religiously this is wrong, we should not be supporting it, but to punish someone in a court of law, I don't think that's appropriate in today's age. And I used to think differently. But interestingly, I also used to think that, we don't need to have prisons, and we should instead have the punishments that the Bible had of either capital punishment, corporal punishment, restitution, or indentured servitude, and that is, that would be what we should have. But I'm realizing that now that I work full-time in a prison, meaning I used to work part-time in a prison, 3 hours a week, now full-time prison chaplain, which has been my dream for years, and it's just such a blessing. And I see that at least the prison where I work, which is a treatment oriented prison, a recovery oriented prison, is really a fantastic type of program to help these men get back, and fix their lives. So God should help us, that we should be blessed to recognize the truth. I mean, it's unconscionable, the types of lies that Bernie Sanders said about our president. Meaning, everything that he said is the exact opposite of who he is. And like we said, the president, he's helped the African American people as individuals in his communities, and that's been his goal from the beginning, to fix the inner cities, to get them out of the people said it's racist for him to say this, but the fact is that these cities run by Democrats. President Obama wrote that in one of his books that that these inner cities are the new plantations, and that's what they are. The public housing, a lot of it, and I've been inside public housing in the Bronx and stuff. I work, I have wedding ministry, and when I worked as a chaplain in the Bronx, I would go into the projects and perform weddings at very low prices, because I recognize, these people, they don't have money, and I was able to serve them because I was working in the Bronx, so it wasn't like a big expense for me. And I would go into these projects and see, and it was as bad, if not worse, than slave quarters on the plantations, and they're basically enslaved for their votes, just to keep the Democrats in power in New York City. That's what we're dealing with. So, and it's the same thing wherever you go, Chicago, Detroit, wherever it is. So, and it's not fair. It's not right. It's not just. But that's who the Democrats are. They're the party of the KKK. They're the party of slavery. They're the party of collectivism. They're the party that sees you as just another number and not as an individual, as opposed to the Republicans, who are the party of Lincoln, the party of liberty, the party of individual freedoms. And, this is what we gotta, this is why we need 4 more years of President Trump, and why we cannot let the Democrats steal the election again, the way that they stole the popular vote. We know that the Democrats colluded with the Russians. It's a fact. We saw President Obama, tell one of Putin's operatives, tell Vladimir that that when I get reelected, I'll have more leverage to do his bidding. That is the Democrats. They are Russian operatives. They are. I mean, this is Bernie Sanders who went on his honeymoon to Moscow. He's a communist. He is a Russian spy. So and Hillary, she had the election stolen first she stole the election from Bernie in the primaries, and then she stole the popular vote from President Trump, because obviously the Russians would prefer Hillary Clinton, who they could control, to President Trump, who they can't control. I mean, it's just common sense. So we saw what they did in 2018. They stole the Congress by telling lies about the president. We can't let this happen again. Where did that wrapper go for that candy bar? I'll throw it away on the way out. Anyway, thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Let's let the spirit of truth prevail. All right, we'll see you later. Take care.